Piracy has re-entered the mainstream conversation. Social media feeds are flooded with claims about the return of piracy and how it is beating streaming platforms. But why the sudden trend? Piracy has been around for decades. It surged in the 2000s, near a collapse in the 2010s, and for a moment it looked defeated. Its return is not random. Behind it, there is a valid ethical reason, and ironically, a step in the right direction. So why is everyone talking about piracy? How does piracy even work? And isn't it illegal? In the 2000s, piracy grew rapidly due to high prices and economic inequality. The average citizen couldn't afford products like CDs on a consistent basis. The cost of a single disc was around $20, as the average hourly pay was $19 for white-collar workers, $13 for blue-collar, and $9 for service workers, leading fans to seek alternative resources. Not all content was legally available for purchase, especially older media that fell into copyright limbo, making piracy the only way to access them. A famous example is the original theatrical cuts of Star Wars. Lucasfilm never released the untouched versions, again making piracy the only way to watch them. Platforms like Napster, BitTorrent, and the Pirate Bay filled that gap. Games, music, movies, you name it, it is there. And so the war between piracy and the entertainment industry began. In 2006, Swedish police raided the Pirate Bay, seizing servers after pressure from the MPAA. Yet the site came back online within 3 days, stronger than before. Hollywood celebrated the raid as a major victory, but traffic to the Pirate Bay increased. The message was clear: people go where access is easiest. At the same time, services like iTunes were only beginning worldwide rollout, often unavailable worldwide. Regions still had no legal digital access to new movies or music. The result was a visible gap, proving that convenience always wins. In 2009, Gabe Newell, Valve's president, stated that piracy is almost a service problem, not a pricing problem. Fans are willing to pay, but the legal options were slow, fragmented, and restricted. Piracy solved that with a single edge: peer-to-peer technology.
Look at the fact that these people have, $2,000 PCs, and they're spending $50 a month US more on their internet connections. Clearly, they're willing to spend money. So, from our point of view, what we saw more and more is that piracy is the result of bad service on the part of game companies.
Around 2010, the Pirate Bay released a full magnet link archive, hundreds of thousands of torrent hashes, meaning anyone could download it. Even if the site was nuked, the torrent ecosystem itself will still survive on users' machine, and so the community will spin up merge so quickly after takedowns it looked like an instant resurrection. But it doesn't stop here. The entertainment industry took notes. The catch is that convenience doesn't only get the people in the door, it keeps them around. In 2010, Netflix's streaming plan was only $8 per month, cutting deals with Paramount, Lionsgate, and MGM. The entertainment industry was in one app: clean UI, seamless experience on smart TVs, tablets, computers, mobile phones, with every great show available on command. That year, Netflix gained 19 million subscribers, generating over $2 billion in revenue. This is the result of convenience. Fast forward a few years, and these platforms sabotaged themselves. Every major studio created its own platform. Not only must you subscribe to each service to watch your favorite shows, but prices increased drastically. The average family spends around $800 on streaming services per year, let alone the premium deals. Your standard $8 deal that had it all, now a standard tier with ads and limited privileges. The solution? Buy the $20 deals, and sometimes you even need a VPN. They traded the very essence of success for greed. However, pirates flipped the table and copied these platforms. They opted for streaming, build clean, elegant interfaces, incredible performance with every show you need, no restrictions, no questions asked. You might get some ads here and there, but who cares? It gets the job done. Again, we see how the layers of convenience tip the scales. To understand modern piracy, we need to understand peer-to-peer technology. The movies and games you watch and play are usually stored in a data center. You send a request from your device as the client and receive it back from the server. However, piracy is a decentralized system. Your device acts as both the client and the server. You request to stream and download your digital content by requesting it from someone else's computer. And if more people own that content, the faster and better it becomes. To download the content, you use a magnet link. They are called magnet links because they attract peers to each other. Just as a magnet doesn't need physical contact to exert force, a magnet link doesn't need the actual torrent file. It works remotely through what is called an info hash. Let's say you want to download the torrent Ubuntu 24. You visit your torrent site, which is a search engine database with this structure. You have a hash table with the key value pairs. We see our image file with its metadata, for example, the size, how many people with the complete file, and how many people are actually downloading it, and of course the magnet link. The website doesn't own the file. It does not exist. The file lives on the other 847 devices. You type Ubuntu 24 and you trigger the following SQL query, where the torrents are ordered by the most downloads. You decide what to download by evaluating the swarm health. More seeders equal faster download, and leechers show popularity. The magnet you click contains the following structure. Magnet is a protocol identifier for magnet links. XT is short for exact topic, a unique identifier for the torrent. The uniform resource name using BitTorrent info hash format, and the 40-character secure hash algorithm is a unique fingerprint of the torrent's content, allowing peers to find each other without needing the original torrent file. Display name for a human-readable description, trackers for the URL of the BitTorrent trackers, and to communicate with the tracker, we will use UDP. During the downloading process, you must find other people downloading the content. You contact the tracker with the info hash and connection details, and you get a response with a list of IPs and ports with the interval of how often to check back with your peer. The next phase is connecting to those peers. We open a TCP connection, send a handshake with a protocol name, info hash, and our peer ID. We then receive the handshake back to confirm they have the same torrent. Each peer sends a bitmap showing which pieces they have. We find the rarest pieces and we request them. They are subdivided into 16 kilobytes blocks for transfer, and we send the request. In the last phase of our step, we download the block of data, verify the secure hash against the expected value from the torrent metadata. If it's valid, we write it to our disk, update our bit fields, and broadcast our ownership to those pieces to all peers. And if corrupted, we discard them and re-request. This repeats thousands of times until all pieces are downloaded and verified, and you become a server to other peers. But the big question is, what do you opt for? Piracy or a subscription? I mean, the answer might be obvious, but you must be careful. You can get fined and face legal actions, depending on where you live. However, the ball remains in your field. You can endure the industry's new system, or find a way to pirate safely and reap the benefits, as you have earned that right. Life tends to reward the clever ones. Thank you so much for watching. Until next time.